Spring is right around the corner, and we just moved our clocks an hour forward, and for the first time in what seems like forever, it's above 60 degrees in Chicago. And one thing that I've realized about my video game collection is that it really needs to be thinned out. I've lived in this apartment for 6 years, and in that amount of time, I've accumulated a lot of games, and since I have a really small apartment and I don't stuff my shelves with games, most of the games that I've acquired that don't fit on my shelf go into boxes that are either stored downstairs or in the closet up here. The wife and I are planning on moving, so now is the time to figure out what I can get rid of now to lessen the amount I need to pack. And in this episode, I'll be going over some self-reflection on my video game collection and see what I can get rid of and what will stay. Most of the things that I have collected over the years were acquired for very cheaply or just downright free. There was a time where I collected things just because. Maybe I wanted to do a video on something, or maybe I thought that it would be worth more in the future and I didn't want to turn it down because it would be more expensive and out of my price range in the future. I did miss out on the late Taito games for the NES for that very reason. Because of my unwillingness to fight the FOMO, I've acquired a ton of stuff that will probably do nothing more than take up space. As of the recording of this video, I have no idea where I'll be moving, so I'm getting ahead of the ultimate anxiety of packing up all my stuff and moving it to another area. I would rather not bring unnecessary items into a new place that will probably sit even longer since we're planning on buying instead of renting. So I have decided to downsize my collection, and in culling down my collection I considered 5 things. So the first thing that I consider is how much nostalgia I have for a game. And that's a really big factor to consider. Is this a game that got me through some tough times, or a game that I got as a kid from a relative who's no longer with me? If it's just something that I acquired on a whim, then the likelihood that the item will come along to the new place drops significantly, which leads me to the next criteria. How long has this game been in its current state? If the game has been sitting in the basement for years, what's the likelihood that it will go on to the next apartment? Probably very low, especially if the game has very little nostalgic value. I have a lot of stuff in boxes that I've held onto for a very long time because I plan on displaying them, like the Sega Nomad and Commodore 64, and I've used them very recently. It does suck to go back into a room, dig out something, and then do a review on it and then put it back. But if it's something that has been in a box for over a year, then it's probably time to consider the next criteria. Do I have any intentions of playing this game in the next 6 months? This is one thing to really consider before getting rid of anything, and that's the hardest because you really have to be honest with yourself. I have seen a ton of episodes of Hoarders to know that if you think too much about this question, you're just gonna keep it just because. And maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I'm getting really good at answering this question faithfully and have marked a lot of stuff as just get rid of it. It feels really good not to have a burden of having stuff that clearly you'll never touch again, especially if that item doesn't meet the next criteria. Does it actually work? Now, I don't go out seeking broken items, but sometimes they manage to find their way into my collection. There was a time when I would just decide to take on some of these as projects and then flip them, like these 3 Nintendo Entertainment Systems that I found while thrifting. Eventually, I just couldn't get these things working past the typical issues, and so these will be sold on Facebook Marketplace for a steep discount. Which leads me to my last criteria. How much is this all worth? One thing that I've learned while going through my collection overflow is that I'm literally storing money in a box, and it's only a matter of time before something happens to it while sitting in that box. Maybe there's a leak in the basement or moths get to it, and then I have to throw it away and it's completely worthless. Going through my overflow, I've noticed some decently priced games that meet that aforementioned criteria, and frankly, that motivates me more to get rid of it. This Zelda Twilight Princess HD for the Wii U and with Amiibo is still in the box and brand new and is worth just as much as when I bought it, so why not get rid of it? I already have 2 copies of the game. And I have games that I don't even own the system for, like this copy of Wolfenstein 3D for the 3DO. I bought it for $5 and now it's worth about $100. So clearing out a lot of this collection frees up some money for things that I actually want, like NES games or that analog NT Mini. The only issue is that I actually need to sell the stuff, and that might take a while. I like to sell locally since I've been burned on eBay before, and also it's just a ton easier to offload items, and best of all, they pay cash. The only downside is that the video game market in Chicago is kind of anemic, and the video games collectors have moved on. I've tried to sell some stuff off of the Facebook Marketplace, and a ton have just lowballed me, or a handful of people just flake out before the sale is finalized. So I'll probably switch to eBay in the next couple of weeks, because it is frustrating to finally get stuff all together to sell and just have it sit in another spot of the apartment for weeks on end. And that's it for this video, so let me know in the comments below if you've ever reached the point in your collection where you feel to downsize, or if you decided to sell everything altogether. If you liked this video, give it a like and share with anyone that might find it interesting. If you're new here, I have other collecting discussion videos, like if the Sony Trinitron is necessary. Also, I have a series called Retronomics that discusses price trends in video games. My latest episode is on the ROB for the NES, and I have a brand new series called Local Pixels, which celebrates Chicago's contribution to gaming, and my first episode is on the Chicago Board Game Cafe, with more to come. So if that's something that you're interested in, consider subscribing for future content. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Super Nicktendo, and I'll see you next time.